Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our latest in our series of webinars we do here at Friendship Place, where we talk about some of the programs we engage in, some of the activities in which engage in, issues of relevance to our work, and really things that you all have, as our audience, have expressed an interest in. And we're so proud and happy to be able to do that. And today we are joined by several of our case managers, happen to be all from our veterans program. We have Listina Kennedy, Charlie McMahon, and Sakna Fall. And the purpose of the topic for today's webinar is, what's a day or a week in the life of a case manager like? I mean, what do they, do all day when they go out and, take care of people, and what makes up a typical day and experience? And as always, these webinars are so much more entertaining and worthwhile when it's organic conversations between the audience watching and the people on the panel sharing and talking here. So please come up with questions, put them in the chat. And I certainly have some follow-up questions myself that I'm sure I'll get a chance to ask. And I imagine other members of the Friendship Place team will have them also. But, I don't want to keep us waiting here. I'm going to go without further ado. And I think we agreed that, Sakna, I think you were going to start here. So, Sakna, why don't you introduce yourself? And Charlie, when it's your turn, Listina, when it's your turn, we'll ask you to do the same thing. But why don't you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what your program is, what you do, and before we started, you were sharing a really interesting story about what a typical week looks like for you. So I'm going to just turn it over to you and let you go.
Yeah. Hi, good morning. Oh, good afternoon now.
Now it's afternoon.
Now it's afternoon. I am Sakna Fall. I am a fairly new case manager in the Vets First office out of Virginia. I have been working there for about 5-ish months, a little over 5 months now. Yeah, as Chris was saying, I was yapping a little bit about my week, what my week looks like, a little bit earlier. So for me, a typical week is and 1 day in the office and 2 at home days if I can help it. Usually it ends up looking more like 2.5, or something of the sort. But I try to keep my Mondays and Fridays at home, for at least half of the days. And then my Tuesdays and Thursdays in the field. I do intakes on Tuesdays, and then I end up typically back at the Virginia office on Tuesdays. Obviously, I'm not at the Virginia office today. I am at home, but I do Tuesday intakes Tuesday mornings, and then I try to talk it through with my PC afterwards and do all the things that I need to do in order to get my intakes approved, get my participants and my veterans set up to be approved for the program. And then Wednesdays are my office days. That is just a day I like to get admin done, get any questions that I have for my PC, or get any like questions that came up for me during the previous week that I may want to talk through with other case managers up in the office, which I do a lot. But and then Thursdays are my actual like real field days where I am like driving around DC, Virginia, Maryland. Last week I drove like 150 miles in a day, which was like not something I would have seen myself doing 6 months ago if you would have told me I was doing that, because I really did not like drive. I still don't like driving, but I'm getting better at it, I think I would say, because I kind of have to. But yeah, Thursdays are like my big driving around days, the days that I burn through podcasts. And Fridays are also admin days, the days that I catch up on my case notes, day that I do like my check requests, stuff like that, catch up on anything that I haven't really done, stuff like that. Yeah. I'd say that's my typical week if I can help it.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Thank you so much. Yeah. Charlie, again, maybe take a moment and introduce yourself and a little bit about what brought you to Friendship Place and what your typical day looks like.
Yeah, so my name is Charlie McMahon. I'm on the housing navigation team. We work out of the DC office, but we serve our entire catchment area, so Maryland and Virginia as well. The housing navigation team, we offer case management. We also just sort of specialize in folks that are receiving some type of housing subsidy. So we've sort of, our niche has become being very familiar with the different regulations with regard to the housing authorities in our different counties and stuff like that, and sort of building those relationships so that we can smooth out that process for a lot of the folks we work with. I think it's actually really interesting, Chris, that you this is called a day in the life, but I think very quickly you said, well, maybe more like a week in the life of a Friendship Place case manager because every day is so different. It really is, each week is kind of the unit we operate in. My weeks tend to include, much like Sakna, at least one full day of admin work, certainly 2 days in the office, and then usually around 2 days in the field. And so, just to use this week as an example, yesterday I had an appointment with a client who was sort of relatively far flung, so that took up most of my afternoon. Today I'm in the office, mostly catching up on admin work. Tomorrow I've got another field day. And so, I'm going to have to make sure I schedule some time for a day at home theoretically to do some more admin work later in the week. But um, we we have to be very flexible, I find, when and how we use our time. I wish I had the same sort of organization structure that Sakna does, and I could know going into each week which days would be the days that I had intakes. But I have an intake tomorrow that wasn't on my calendar until 10:30 this morning. Some of the folks we work with are in crisis and need to move very quickly, and so and I'm sure this is the case for both Sakna and Listina. Sometimes you have to move things around, and so it really does just land on each week. I know I need to get my actual field work done with my participants, and then of course also all the administrative work that goes on behind the scenes. And it's really just about strategizing how we schedule the behind the scenes stuff around the schedules of our participants.
Thank you. Listina.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lestina Kennedy, and I'm a case manager in the DC office. I am grateful to say that on the 19th of September, it will be 3 years. I'm so excited. Um, okay, so I try my very best to have Mondays as my admin day. However, I do intakes on Tuesday. So I'm not going to go like into my schedule the way Sakna and Charlie did. That's pretty much the way it works. But I'm going to address something that Christine had asked me to do at the beginning. So our days, to be a case manager, the one thing you have to be is flexible. And you also can't take anything personal, like big time serious. So, and sometimes you end up working past the time that you're supposed to, especially if you're trying to get something done in a timely manner. Though we do our best, I know I do my best to work from 8 to 4 o'clock. I'm going to be completely honest. Sometimes I may meet a participant at 7 o'clock in the morning if they have to be to work at 8 o'clock and I need a research done. And by the time they get off work, it's late, it's too late for me to go. So okay, I'll start my day. I start my day early anyway, because I sew into myself before I sew into anyone else. But if I need to leave my house at 6 o'clock in the morning to meet them at 7 o'clock, so that I can get this research done so that they can stay in good standings with the program. Okay, fine, we'll do that. And to address the situation that you saw me dealing with, Christine, I had a participant, a female veteran, who got a lot of gumption with her, and I'm grateful for that. She found her own apartment. However, what the rental office said would take place didn't take place in the time that they said it would take place. Now I'm on the clock because this particular participant was in emergency housing. So we'd already spent about 40 days because the participant thought they wanted to move into this area. Then they realized that the area that they wanted to move into had to be broader. So that meant that I had to go fishing again. But I'm grateful that she found her own apartment. So I was on the telephone with the rental office because I forget what day it was. I don't know what day it was, but I just remember that Monday, they were supposed to have had in my inbox all of the documents that I need so that I can compose my move-in documents so I can get it to my supervisor so my supervisor can look at it and then they can get it to finance because I need some checks cut. I think it's like by the 9th of July. And we have the most amazing finance team. I am so grateful to them. I'm not going to cry for how they bless us and keep us doing what we do. I can't say enough about that. One of the things that I like to do when I move a participant in, first, one of the things I like to do is I like to make sure that I have checks in hand. So on the day that the participant moves in, I have checks in hand, particularly if it's a new landlord, because I want them to know that Friendship Place paid, we pay our bills, and that we're willing to do what we need to do to help our participants. I then take them shopping because a lot of our participants, I have lived experience like you, Alan, but you know that. So I understand that what happens sometimes when you experience homelessness. My family and I, when we experienced homelessness for the first time, we had two storage units, and it got down to whether or not we were able to pay our storage unit or pay where we were staying, which was in a hotel. So we had to let our storage unit go, and we moved out of a 4-bedroom home. So 98 to 99% of our things were sold at auction, and there was nothing we can do about it. And we're still in the process of rebuilding, but God is good. So what's important to me is that when I move a participant into housing, and I help physically help with that. So if they need, I have an SUV. If they don't have means of transportation, then I'll go get them from wherever they are. We load my car up. We go to housing. I already have checks in hand. I've already inspected the unit. I give them the checks that they need. I physically help my participant move in. After that, we're going to Walmart. I'm going to a super Walmart, a Walmart that has groceries and it has pots and pans and sheets and all of that. You don't realize what you need when you move into a place until all of your things are no longer there. And a lot of us lived in our homes, have lived in our houses for years. So we've forgotten about how expensive it is to get the pots and the pans and the dishes and the dishwasher and dishwasher liquid and the towels and the sheets and all of that. Then I take them back to their unit. I physically help them load everything into their unit. And then we're gone for the day. However, when that happens on that day, trust me, it's longer than an 8-hour day because I don't leave them until they are as what I consider as whole. I remember when my family and I, when we were displaced and we went from moving 8 different times in 8 months, and we were able to move into a 3-bedroom townhouse, how important it was for us as a family, for me to be in the kitchen cooking, because I had a couple of pots with me in the hotel, cooking and making a meal for us. And for my family, food is love. And that blessed us because it felt like home again. It felt like home again. So I remember that. So with every participant that I move into housing, I take that piece with me because if you've never experienced homelessness, you don't understand how important it is to feel like you're home. And how can you feel like you're home if you don't have any food in the refrigerator? How can you feel like you're home if you don't have a shower curtain to take a shower? How does it feel like it's home when you can't take a shower because you don't have a towel or a washcloth or soap? Though these are the things, the creature comforts that we really don't think about. And I think I'm done for now, and I'm willing to answer whatever questions you have.
No, thank you. And thank you all three for sharing. Listina, thank you for sharing your story. I mean, I think, when we hear, and Vanessa, I like the term you use, the testimony of people who work for us, with us here at Friendship Place, but who bring that lived experience, it just makes it all the more powerful as to why it is we do that work, the work we do every day, and why you all as case managers do your work every day. You're having a profound impact on lives. I mean, yeah, one of the questions I was gonna hold off, but I'm going to actually bring it up now. And we can get into more technical stuff later. Obviously, all three of you, and honestly, anyone else who works at Friendship Place would like to weigh in with this as well. You're dealing with people going through some real crises, which means that it has an impact on you, right? That you are absorbing some of these crises. I'm blanking on the term. I'm blanking on the term, but you're absorbing these crises. What do you do in the way of self-care? I mean, because you need to take care of yourself when you're dealing with these. Yes, shared trauma. It's something. It's something else. Trauma. I thank you, Lynn, for sharing that in the chat. But there's a word before trauma too. But anyway, what do you do for self-care? You need to take care of yourselves. When you're doing vicarious trauma. Thank you, Rachel. That's why we have a great team here to help answer my question. So, what do you do when you're, to help assuage that vicarious trauma that I'm sure you must absorb? And anyone,
I
please
will
weigh in. Go, I'm
I'll
sorry,
go
Lucia.
first. I start my day at about 5. I start my day with prayer, worship. I also work on making sure I get a workout in. I have to pour into myself first, because I can't pour out of an empty cup. So I make sure that I do those things at the beginning of the day. So if that means I have to get up at 5 o'clock, 5:30, which I do most days, then after I'm done doing that, now I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready for the day. And sometimes, as Sakna and Charlie will tell you, sometimes you have ABC scheduled on your day, but then something happens with the participant and you need to stop what you're doing to address that. And sometimes our work can be very heavy. So for me, I'll take laugh breaks. Laughter is good medicine. It says it in the word. And I will look at Steve Harvey, some Family Feud. I'll look at some clean comedy on my computer. I'll listen to some music where I may be I'm like this because I need to make sure that I'm okay. If I'm not okay, then I can't help anyone else.
Thank you. Yeah, no, the saying that before you get on the plane, you put your own mask on first, right? And that's so important. Sakna, Charlie, what would you add in terms of what do you do for self-care?
I definitely agree. I think for me specifically, I am a very sensitive person, so it was something that I was very worried about coming into this work was my own like bringing the work home type of thing. And but what I found that helps me is I journal a lot, I meditate a lot. Like Listina, I'm a morning person. I wake up in the mor really early in the morning. I meditate for about 10 minutes every morning, and I'm about to sound like a real hippie, but if anyone has ever tried it, you should stretch for 15 minutes every morning. Just that's my thing. Just stretch 15 minutes every morning. Don't look at your phone. Just be by yourself and meditate. Think about yourself, affirmations. Anyways, okay, do that. That type of stuff. It really helps me. Really set out my mind for the day, set out my intentions for the day, set out the things that I want to get done for the day. Like Christina said, maybe that's not what I'm actually gonna get done today, but it is the intention that I set out for the day. I also do things like bake. I have a cat that hates me, but I still cuddles with me occasionally. Um, I call my mom and I still cry to her even though I'm an adult. Like there are things that I do that I don't maybe do daily, but I still like call out for support. And there are things like just talking to my supervisor about when I'm feeling specifically, like when I felt overwhelmed. And this is something that I really appreciate about Friendship Place, which is like when I got to like the 13, 14 caseload, I told my supervisor, I said, hey, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I think that this is for me right now the cap that I can take. And she was like, sure, we can do a pause on your intake and you tell me when you're ready to do more. And that was something that I really appreciated because I was able to take a step back, take care of the people that were on my caseload at the moment to the best of my ability because I had just started. This is something completely new for me. I'm fresh out of college, so I want to make sure that I'm doing the best that I can. And now I'm doing intakes again and I'm doing them to the best of my ability and I know I'm doing them to the best of my ability.
Oh, thank you. Charlie, what about you?
Yeah, so it's funny. My sort of systems for staying sort of at my best shape and staying in a place where I can serve the folks that we service to the best of my ability could not be more different from Saknas and Listinas. They both have sort of an organized sort of structure and process, which I really respect. And I think that that maybe is the first um, sort of tool that we have in our toolbox is we're always learning from each other as case managers, which I am really, really appreciative of. But I personally, so actually, I didn't mention this until now, but today is my 1 year anniversary with Friendship Place. So I've been here for exactly 1 year, and it took me a long time to sort of learn how to operate in an environment like this without letting it sort of wear you down. And for me, the thing that sort of did the trick was just I needed the mileage, and I was able to see over time that there are a ton of systems in place and a ton of people in place who are going to great lengths to make sure that we are, as case managers, putting our energy towards the sort of activities and sort of the work that is going to do the most good for the most folks that we can. That's not as much as, I take personal responsibility for, what I'm doing with my day each day. There's people who've been doing this for a very, very long time that are making sure that as an organization, we are working in such a way that we can serve the most people to the best degree. And so I take a lot, I derive a lot of peace and a lot of calm from saying, as long as I'm doing what I need to be doing as a part of this team, I can be confident that we're not going to solve the problem at the end of each day, but that sort of organizationally and as a part of a whole, we're contributing as much as we possibly can to the solutions for the folks that we serve. But that only came with time and seeing over and over and over again that, you're never going to meet everyone's needs at the end of every day. But over the course of a month, you've probably met more needs for folks than you would have if you got bogged down by trying to do more than you possibly could.
No, thank you. I mean, it's interesting. I think we all come to, work with different methods of self-care. And, I talked, within my first month here, Sean Reed, who is no longer with us, but he had been with Friendship Place for over 10 years. He taught me box breathing and that 4 in, hold for four. And I must say that that is something that has served me well over the years. Whenever you feel like you're spinning in a tizzy, that 4 in, hold for four, four out, hold for four just does the trick. And it's all magical here. But one of the things, I think it was you, Listina, and I will make sure. I'm sorry that Cornelia and the finance team aren't on the call, but I will let them know that you said kind words here. But you brought up something that I'd love to elaborate more on, the idea of teamwork. I mean, do you find that case management is I don't want to use the word lonely, but isolated thing, or do you work in tandem with other case managers? Do you offer ideas and feedback to each other, support for each other? How do you find that this all works?
Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, on Mondays from 10 till 11, we have a staff meeting. And the beginning of the staff meeting, we have a question. So I'm not going to say it's a silly question, but it's a question that always evokes laughter. So it may be like, what's your favorite toy? Or when you grew up, it may be, what's your favorite summer fruit? One time we were talking about, I think it was Easter candy or some type of candy, and candy corn really was like going at it, and it was just so much laughter. From 11 to 12, we do case management. We have an hour window where all of the case managers are on, and we talk about our cases. If there's a situation that we feel as though that we need help with, then we'll talk about it. And whatever case manager that has something positive to say is always positive, something to say, then they'll chime in. We also have leadership on the call as well, and they'll give guidance as well. One of the things I love about the Veterans First team, I'm 60. This is my first time ever in my life where I've been on a team as supportive, as positive, as nurturing. I can go on and on. And Sakna and Charlie, I say this almost every Monday, how much I appreciate being here. There's no there's no I's, no big I's, no little U's, no one's tripping on their title. I remember one time that I had a participant who passed away, and I didn't know he had passed away, and I had was looking for him, and I got this email saying that he had passed away. It's like, hold up, nah, nah, nah. I clicked on it, and it was his face coming back at me from a program, and it hit me. I started bawling, and I didn't know that Chris was in on the email. Chris texted me, can she call me? And I was like, yes. And she was like, Lacina, I just saw the email. And she knows me. She knows how I am. And she said, is there something that you're working on that you absolutely have to finish right now? And I said, no. She said, I need you to stop working. I need you to take the afternoon off. And I'm bawling. I mean, I didn't expect for this to hit me the way that it did. And I can't explain to you why it did, but it did. And I was supported in that time. And the follow-up, I had to take a couple of days off because when I tried to come back, I just couldn't. And my team surrounded me with love and concern. And it enabled me to be able to deal with the next participant who wasn't exactly cakewalk. But yes, so when it comes to teamwork, when it comes to us working together, I don't feel like I'm by myself. At any given time, I can teams anyone, including the director, Chris, of our program. It doesn't matter whom. I can teams anyone and be like, hey, let's talk. Hey, I need this. Hey, does anyone know of a landlord in Prince George's County that's renting a room? So for me, I don't feel alone at all. I love our team.
No, thank you. Charlie, Sakna, what would you add about teamwork?
It's really, really hard to follow Listina, like ever. Um, But I would say, just to add on to that, I think the way that I described it a couple weeks ago was like it's just everyone is aggressively kind. Like you say the hint of you're having a trouble with something and everyone jumps on to help. So I also would say like I haven't felt alone in dealing with anything since I've been here. Like I said, I go to the office Tuesday and it's not even my office day. I just go there to giggle and tell people and like just yap along and see if any like if I'm having trouble with something, I know I can turn to like Lene, who's another case manager in VA office, or Eric, who is maybe probably on this call because he be everywhere. Um and just let them know like I'm having this issue. Or my PC, like I know that Corinna will have an maybe she won't have an direct like an instant answer for me, but she will try to find that answer for me. So I have not felt any like lack of support or alone at any point.
Thank you.
I couldn't agree more. But I think I would even take it a step further. And the thing that I think sets us apart from other workplaces, I've worked in other environments where, you're having a problem and you ask the person next to you and they say, I don't have a solution, but we'll find one together. And you kind of search for resources or whatever it is together. I think what sets the Vets First team apart is that we have this sort of crack team of specialists who really know what they're doing. We as case managers, we tend to be asked to be not even jacks of all trades, truly masters of all trades, right? We need to know everything there is to know about helping folks to access housing, of course, but also healthcare resources and legal resources. And, to speak a little bit about my position, there's a whole separate set of regulations, the whole separate federal agency when it comes to sort of housing subsidies, right? Like our funding and our program guide is from the VA, of course, but we rely on HUD for all the regulations about anything having to do with the subsidy. And so, we have folks in the team who are specialized in that exact knowledge. And so instead of having someone next to you who you can say, hey, can you help me hunt down how to get in touch with the housing authority in DC to get an answer about this question that we're having? It's even better than that. You have somebody who can that they already know that information. I've got a meeting tomorrow with our healthcare specialist because I have a participant who I just did an intake with who's having some trouble accessing the resources that they need. And as much as I'm 100% confident I could ask Christina or Sakna, hey, can you help me dig around for a resource for this person? And they would, and we would solve the problem together after an hour. I can just call our specialist, and in 10 minutes, she has the solution for me. She's already familiar. And so, as much as the mindset is absolutely there, this only works when that's the foundation. It's clearly been this mindset's been in place for so long. It's actually sort of structurally been developed to capitalize on that and deliver solutions as quickly as possible. And I think that that's the thing that keeps me excited to come to work. I'm also in the office, not on my required office day today. Because I wanted to be surrounded by people that are doing this work with me. Just because as much as sometimes it's harder to sort of hunker down and make a bunch of phone calls when you're here, when that one phone call comes through that I don't know what to say, it's a lot easier to find those words when I've got the team around me. So absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
No, thank you. If anyone else wants to put a question in the chat, please go ahead. But I do have more to go with, so I'm going to keep going until other people put a question in the chat here. Certainly there are things like social work degrees one can get, and one can study that. But oftentimes it's not what you study that is the most important thing that you bring to your job, right? That's not the trains you must for your job. What would each of you say has been, what has been the one thing in your past that has been most important for you to learn how to do your job today?
My life.
Hmm.
I've lived a life of service. The people that are in my inner circle when I let them know that I had applied for this job and now I'm working this job, they were like, "Oh, that's a no-brainer. Like you do that on a regular basis." My past experience, life, life. I came to this position without a degree. And when I was at the table at the job fair where I met Alan, I was honestly coming from healing from being a breast cancer overcomer. And I was honestly not feeling the best because every job that I saw that I wanted to apply for, I knew I could do it, but they needed a bachelor's degree. And I didn't have a bachelor's degree. But when I met the people at the friendship place table, and I went there. Was rather defeated, and I was like, I know you need a degree to do this job. She was like, no, there's one position, a case manager position in Veterans First team. You don't need a degree, and she said all you need is a high school diploma. I'm now working a job, so I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
It's impossible to follow you, Stina. You bring tears to my eyes every time. Like seriously, truly, I'm so great, and you're across the hall. I mean, I got a hug from you about 30 minutes ago, and I got about two more on my budget for later. But I'll try to at least hopefully make Sakna's life a little easier here, and she can follow me. My background is actually in the restaurant world, and I found that that sort of very fast-paced environment where you have 10 tasks and they're all at different priorities and they're constantly changing was the skill that has done me the most good here. There are high priority items and low priority items, but eventually you can't neglect the low priority items forever. You have to get to them. Maybe they can wait 2 or 3 days, but they you sort of learn that everything has to be addressed eventually, and so learning to identify when something crosses that boundary into this is not a make or break thing, but it's been on the list for 3 days now. I really need to get to it today. I think that was just sort of the practical skill that's taken me the furthest here, and it's something that I'm always having to fine tune. And to this day, I sometimes get it wrong, and I panic and I do something that didn't need to be done today. I do it today at the sacrifice of something else, and vice versa. But I do think that that's probably what I brought to this work, aside from my sort of educational background and all of those hard skills about how to use computers and Excel and all that. I think in terms of like a sort of instinct, something implicit, I think that that's what's been most valuable.
Thank you. Sakna.
Um, for me, I would say just I worked with kids a lot, which is obviously very different from what we do now. But I think that the thing that I learned a lot from working with kids is that you talk to kids like you talk to adults. And to me, I talk to everybody the same way, which is something that I've actually like been learning to not do as much because I said type beat in a meeting the other week and that was not great. But like I think that just generally like coming straight from college into this and coming from internships into this and like coming from working with kids into this has taught me just like how like transferable all kinds of skills are. Just like gentle parenting, you wouldn't think would be a thing that you can use on a 60-year-old man, but it is, you know. It may not be the same type of gentle parenting, but it is like similar language. It is like a practical skill.
Thank you. Chris Kennedy, I see your hand up, but Vanessa had a question in the chat I'd love to go to, and then I'll go to you, Chris, and then I see questions from Barbara and Brenda. But Vanessa, your question was, what sort of boundaries do you all have with participants? That's an important question. I mean, well, I'll let you answer it.
I feel like I need to beat Listina to the punch now. I got to speak up first. I think that one of the keys is you have to meet every participant where they're at, and so I try to compromise. I met with a participant yesterday who was really extremely resistant to meeting someplace that I would deem more comfortable. There was a library close to this person's location, very close, but for whatever reason, they really weren't comfortable meeting there. And so, as much as I would love for it to be a boundary that I'm not going to meet you in the parking lot, that, you you're behind the auto parts store that potentially you're staying at and you won't tell me that or not. I would love to meet. This library is only a quarter mile away. This is, for me, it's more comfortable. It's a safer environment, and it's a place where we can get theoretically some more work done. However, the participant is really resistant to this, and so for my own personal sort of safety, and just out of an sort of abundance of caution, and um, but in an effort to meet this person where they're at, I was like, okay, well, I will bring one of my colleagues with me. I'll have somebody else there with me just to sort of have some help. But we will meet where the participant is at. And so, as much as I think this is maybe not the best answer, is that that's a moving target. I think boundaries with folks have to be reflective within reason of where they're at, and as much as you I have an idea of I would like for everyone to call me exactly between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. each day. I would like to only meet with folks between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. so that I have time to wrap things up, or prep ahead of time. That's never going to work. And so you just have to your boundaries have to be reflective within reason, of course, of the needs of the folks that you're serving.
Thank you. Sakna and Listina?
I do
I'm
agree
gonna
with that. Oh, all right. I do definitely agree with that. I think that was also something that I definitely struggled with starting this job. But my number one thing has just been like, I can't answer my phone at 3 in the morning. I just can't. I just like can't. But if you do call me at 3 in the morning, I have made it clear I will call you back. When I see the call, I call you back. When I see your text, I call you back. Things like that are very easy for me, and I tell my participants this very easily. I tell the veterans on my caseload this. But I make sure that like at intake I give my vets the my PC's business card, and they obviously get the like page in the intake packet with the information of who they can call, and they get the emergency phone line number if there is an emergency they can call. But like Charlie said, it is a moving target. That is something that I've learned. If someone calls me at 6 and I know that this is a vet that works between the hours of 9 to 5, I'm going to pick up the phone at 6 because I know that she was working from 9 to 5, and I know that she may need something tomorrow. I know that she's not going to ask me to come to Woodbridge at 6 p.m. or something like that. There are things that are just like a moving target. Like Charlie said, it depends on who it is or what the exact situation is or what may need to get done. But yeah.
Thank you.
And can you, I apologize. I have a veteran that's moving into housing and I had to answer his call. So I didn't hear the question. Can
Oh,
you
sorry. It
restate
was,
the question? Thank you.
yeah, of course, absolutely. So the question was, what boundaries do you maintain and how do you maintain them with the people you're serving?
Um, I let them know my working hours. I do let them know that if I need to help them before or after, I'm available if that's something that's needed. Um, let them know that like I don't have it's challenging to answer the question because I've never really had a problem with boundaries with a participant because of how I do my intake. So I let them know that we're in this together and that I'm here to help you. And so I'm letting them know, and as Charlie and Sakna said, it's participant centered. So we're meeting them where they are. I let them know that, if there's an issue that came up after 4 o'clock, please give me a call. And when I get in the office the next day, I'll make sure that I will give you a call, to find out what's going on with you. But I try my best to, though there are times, and Chris is on this call and there's others, so they know that I will work before time and I've been known to work after time, but that's not my usual. That's not my usual.
Right. No, very important. So thank you all. Chris Kennedy, had your hand up, and then we'll go to the chat and answer some questions there.
Yeah, thanks for being here today, case managers. So, in case you don't know, I'm the community engagement manager at Friendship Place. I often do events where I'm out in the public, meeting the public at a tabling event, and they're coming up to me and asking questions about Friendship Place. And a lot of times the questions are case manager related that I just don't know the answer to. So I have a couple questions. Um, First of all of you have mentioned, field work. For somebody who's completely clueless about what you do, what does field work mean? When you say you're driving around, are you looking for unhoused people and to help them, or what does field work mean?
Okay, I'll jump in first. Field work means we're out in the community. It could be a various of things. It could be that we are on our way to meet a participant for a home visit or to complete a recertification. It could be that we're on our way to meet a participant to drop off donated computers, or they've just recently moved into housing and I wasn't able to help them with some temporary financial assistance when they moved in. So now I'm coming back and we're going to the store and we're doing that. Field work means that you're not in front of your computer, you're out in the field, you're out in the community. So it can be a various of things.
Okay. And I don't know if anybody else wanted to answer, but
I'm happy to sort of just reiterate what Stina said. It can be a huge variety of things. I will say, to answer your specific question, for the most part, our case managers aren't actually doing street outreach. I'm looking for folks that are living on the street. We have a team of outreach specialists whose entire day is occupied by finding folks who are eligible for our program and helping ensure that we're serving those people.
mhm,
Those people absolutely are doing what you described, and we should definitely have a day in the life of the outreach staff.
mhm.
Their responsibilities are entirely different from ours, and what we do doesn't work without them. So I don't know what you guys have scheduled for next month, but cannot recommend speaking to that team more. Some of the
Okay.
most competent folks we work with. But like Listina said, it can take a huge, wide variety. Oftentimes, it's going on housing tours. Some of the folks that we work with don't present quite as well as Listina and Sokka and I do, just in terms for to a landlord. And as much as I would love to live in a world where there wasn't that type of housing discrimination. There are many times where me being on the tour with the participant and sort of asking the questions that they would be equally capable of asking, or
Mhm.
just being a second person to sort of shake hands with the leasing agent does make a meaningful difference on their chances of being approved. And so we're absolutely there just to sort of act as backup. There are things that our participants are capable of doing that just having some help can go a really long way. And so, sometimes that means driving down to Prince William County to go on a 30-minute housing tour with a participant, just so that the leasing office there takes that person a little bit more seriously, even if that's not how it should be. That's sometimes a reality. And that's sometimes what we have to do to get folks into housing.
Okay. And since you mentioned street outreach, another question I get is, what is the process of taking someone who is experiencing, real outdoors, unhoused homelessness with no housing, and the street outreach contacts them, I guess, refers them to you, but when they get in contact with you, do you have to say to them, you know, it's going to take a week or two to get you a place, so I'm sorry, you're going to have to keep sleeping outside? Or what happens with that?
Unfortunately, for the most part, yeah. So I would say a week or two is relatively ambitious in some cases, even. So number
Hmm.
one, because our program is we're so rigid about our eligibility criteria, there are absolutely sometimes folks have every document you need on day one. But this can include, this is including all of their ID documentation, but also any record of income they're getting, sometimes from benefits, sometimes from earned income, whatever it is. We need a copy of their veteran status. And so sometimes that alone can take a couple of weeks. You have to basically request
Hmm.
a federal agency send a document. And unfortunately, because of the restrictions on our grant, our hands are tied. We're not really able to serve these folks in any meaningful way until we can establish they're eligible for the program, which is, a barrier, but it's of course very important. It's a very important thing for us to uphold. Um, from there, once we actually get them enrolled in the program, it really is highly dependent on what their needs are, where they're at. Many folks
Hmm.
are coming to us, they're sleeping outside, but potentially they, have a unit that they've done a tour at and they just really need some help getting through the process of the application. That can be done in a couple of weeks. Some folks are weeks and weeks away from even being comfortable touring a place that they might want to move into. And so we have stopgap solutions in some cases in the interim. We do stuff
Hmm.
like emergency housing assistance. This is where we put someone in a hotel on a temporary basis. the requirements for that are pretty strict, and the limitations are very strict, but it's something we do just to get folks off of the street. And then we also have these great partnerships with transitional housing facilities that we can try to sort of streamline the process of getting folks into, as well as we have this sort of lexicon of partner landlords that will oftentimes be willing to sort of get to the process of drawing up a lease for a room for rent or for something that maybe isn't the final kind of landing place for this participant, but is at least a major step up off of being on the street. These are
Mm.
folks that these landlords are people that we can call and sometimes have a lease the same day. It's not necessarily something that every participant we work with wants, but for those that do, it's a really important partnership, and it's one that we really rely on a lot.
Okay. And
You.
my last question that I get asked all the time. So, how do you take someone who presumably has no income and get them a lease? How do they pay their rent? I mean, I know you mentioned like various veterans benefits they might have available to them, but how do they pay first month's rent, second month rent? Where does that money come from?
Okay, I'll jump in. Um, Once an intake has been approved, then we're able to, so I'll use myself for an example. When I meet my participant during intake, one of the questions I ask them is where do they want to be housed? Like, and I'm also looking at if they have income. If they have income, then I try my best not to put them in not to put them in an apartment just because they don't have income right now. Generally try to put them in a room to rent. And I let them know that this is not their forever home. This is something
Mm.
for them to begin establishing positive rental history in their
Mm.
name because a lot of our participants have been evicted. So now you have that ding on your credit. And if you, when you're trying to get an apartment, they're going to look at that. So I just met
Mm.
with a participant and he was evicted in the beginning of May of this year. So I just spoke with him and I was like, for him to be able to stay where he is for at least 6 months to a year so he can get some positive rental history in his name. So when he does go out and look for something else, they won't just see the eviction. They will see that he has positive rental history as well.
Mm.
We're able to provide, and Chris can tell you like the grants and the funds and all of that. Um, what we're able to do is when we meet a participant, we complete all of the documentation, we complete the intake, and we submit it to our project coordinator, which is our supervisor. They look through everything, look at the e-file. Once they approve it, now we're able to move forward. Because I already know what they're looking for. And I'm grateful that I've been blessed to have some partnerships with some landlords. I had one landlord where literally all I have to do is ask him, do you have anything available? And if he does, and I want it, it's done. There's no credit
Mm.
check. There's nothing. And we have landlords, other landlords like that as well. We provide security deposit. If they're between if they're under 30%, then we're able to do up to 9 months of rental assistance. I don't necessarily broadcast that information because I don't want their participant to become lackadaisical. I don't want them to get in their comfort zone and think, oh, you guys are going to pay my rent for the next X amount of months. I have no motivation to do anything. I know what's going on. If they fall between 30 and 50, or rather, yeah, 50, 30 and 80, then it's 6 months. And I'm wrong. I may be wrong about the percentage, and I'm sorry, Chris. But then they're able to get 6 months of rental assistance. But once they're approved, we don't tell them no if they don't have income. No. And a lot of them are concerned because they don't have income. And I let them know, no, 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 we got you. We got you. Your intake has been approved. This is what we're doing. And then we help them with the employment piece. We have an in-house employment specialist. We also have HVRP. So, yeah.
Thank you. Looks like Listina may have frozen here. Oh, there you are. Oh. Great. I do want to go into the chat, and we only have time for a couple of questions, but I do want to talk about some of them here. Um, Barbara had raised that, yes, we have primarily it's the VETS program here who's representing today. We'll do other webinars with other programs. But if there's anyone else, and I'm sorry, I can't see all the participants on the call here, if there's anyone who's a case manager in a different program. If you wanted to take a moment and just talk about, what your day is like and how it may differ from what we've heard already, please jump in right now, or I'll move on to the next question. And with the commitment that we'll come back around and continue. As always, we do different programs here. So I'll give you a second to weigh in, and we can come back to that question. Um, Brenda, you made a note that this is the type of thing. Yes, we will post this on our YouTube channel. This is the powerful stories that really get the word out to our audience. And later on, I'll drop in the chat. Or Julianne, if you could drop a link to our YouTube channel in the chat, then folks can see where we have these and other webinars that are of important topic here of what we do here. Michaela, you're saying, thank you for the work you do every day to serve neighbors in the community. And how do you build trust with participants? That's a great question. So,
Um, I
No,
can.
go, Sasha.
All right, all right. Just really quickly for me, like Lucina said earlier, it starts at intake, right? For me, I always ask, what do you like to be called? I call people by their last name first, and then I ask them what they like to be called. Whether they go by their first name, last name, whatever it may be, because names are very important to me, or just very important generally. And then for me, like I said earlier, I also talk to everybody the same way. I don't talk to anyone differently than I talk to everybody else. But then I also try to kind of see the vibe of the intake, try to see if the person that or the veteran that I'm talking to is a little more standoffish than um, maybe another one, or if I suss out that they might be a little more um, if they might be a little more like hesitant to give me certain documents, things like that. Building trust is something that may take some time. For example, I had an intake that I did on, I think it was July 11th. And not even July 11th, July maybe 7th, that I have just now completed because the vet was a little hesitant to give all of his intake and ID documents. So even though he wasn't completely enrolled in the program, I still after we did the intake packet, I still called him the next week and was like having conversations with him about and explaining to him about exactly what our program was, and just telling him exactly what every like page was. I had him come into our VA office and talk to the PC and talk through what exactly like our consent packets meant and what exactly he was signing, because sometimes it takes a little bit more time to gain people's trust. So you may have some people that are like, "Yep, I'll sign whatever this is." I just need the help right now, whatever it is. You may have some people that are just like, "I actually don't know that I want to give you my social security number," which is completely fine and valid, because they might not know, or they might be a little more hesitant to just do things like that. So I think building trust is different based on what vet you're meeting. You just have to kind of get the vibe, for lack of a better word, at the intake to see how to kind of build off of that and how to kind of build the trust from that for that specific vet and how to deal with that.
thank you. Listina and Charlie, anything you would add to that?
I would say I think we're lucky that Friendship Place has a bit of a reputation as an organization that folks can come to that need help, and they'll get the help that they need. And so I feel like Stockman and Messina probably agree with me. I feel very lucky that I'm starting with a little bit of trust in the bank with folks at least that have lived in the area for a little while. I tend to, as much as I value very really heavily the trust that our participants put in us, 99 times out of 100, there's always going to be that 1 out of 100 that regardless of the services they're receiving, they're just not going to trust you because of past experiences or whatever it is. They're just sort of in a distrustful place. And so I try not to rely too heavily on trust. Transparency is kind of the alternative for me, and I really try to embody that. And so folks will often say, well, what am I signing? Okay, let's go like word by word through this document. I'm not going to ask you to trust me that this is not, setting you up for a potential problem in the future. Let's really talk through exactly what this is. There's no not necessarily, that does build trust, I think, long term, but in the meantime, it eliminates the need for trust as a barrier to those folks receiving services. And so transparency is I think the biggest asset that we have for that.
You, Listina, I don't know if you want to add to that or no.
They said it all.
No, this is wonderful. Well, I want to wrap up, and I'm going to ask one last question, but first I want to note a couple of observations in the chat here. Folks have been asking about what we do with some of our other programs. We're going to do a webinar on the children we serve August 19th at noon, and the link to register for that is there in the chat. We're going to do an open house here at the Welcome Center on August the 20th from 4 to 7. Send me an email so we have an idea as to how many folks are coming, but certainly we'll put an email out into the world to let people know about that. But this is always a wonderful opportunity to learn what happens here at the Welcome Center and talk to some of the case managers and staff here. Also, we have our Friendship Place Honors Gala where you can buy tickets to and sponsorships for, emphasis on the sponsorships for, on September 18th. And that is, a wonderful opportunity. It's our annual awards gala. And then Chris Kennedy, thank you. You dropped in the chat a link to our Amazon wish list. And this really supports all of our programs. Certainly government funding does a lot, but it doesn't do everything. And so there are ways that we need to, supplement that with things like cleaning when people move into a home, cleaning supplies, um, linens, toiletries, things such as that, that we all take for granted, but that when someone is moving into a home who may have been unhoused for some period of time, they can't take for granted because they don't have. So you have an opportunity to visit the wish list and make those purchases and have them sent here, and we can put them to good use. But I did want to close here by asking our three, first of all, thanking the three of you, Sakna, Charlie, and Listina, and thanking Chris P. and Lindsay for helping to coordinate this and make this all happen here. So thank you all for this. This has been wonderful. Very quickly, what does it feel like when you get a win and somebody gets to stability because of work you've done? Describe that feeling for people.
I'm grateful to be able to be in a position where I get paid to be a blessing to others and literally change the trajectory of their lives. To be able to give someone their keys and they haven't had keys to an apartment or a place like for 10 years or more. There's no greater feeling to know that every single day you're showing up for someone else, and that's making a difference in someone else's life. There's no greater feeling.
Amen.
I think gratitude is definitely the word. Like, especially in the moment that we're in right now, it feels really good to wake up and know that I'm doing something that is making a difference to someone, like that is concrete, if that makes any sense. So to me, heart filling. It's lovely. I don't know. Lovely is a good word for it. If that's a good word for it, that's my word for it.
Wonderful. And Charlie?
We talked a lot about boundaries, I think, during this webinar, which is key. When there isn't a win to be had, it's important to not let it drag you down. I think, the flip side of that is when you have a win, like you got to ride that as high as you possibly can. And so I don't cry in public often, but there have been, a handful of times where I've come out of this office after getting off of one key phone call where we got good news about a participant's situation, and I, just kind of stumbled into the main office and sort of stood and held my breath and kind of tried to find the words to explain the breakthrough that had finally happened. And so it doesn't happen often that you have one of those wins that you really didn't think was going to come through, but when it does, it's unlike anything that I've ever experienced in a workplace.
Yeah, thank you all. I say all the time, those of us who work in the nonprofit sector are so lucky that we get to work every day. Even those of us on the fundraising or admin side of things, we get to go to work every day and know that we're making a difference in somebody else's life. And well, how do you top that, right? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Listina, Sakna, Charlie, for being on this call. Again, Lindsay and Chris P for helping to coordinate it. And just thank you all for being part of this community, being part of this family. Join us at the other webinars. Join us at the Welcome Center. Join us at the gala. Other things coming up, lots of fun activities. We want to be out there in the community and sharing the good word of the good work that these folks are doing and everyone else on our team is doing. So Have a good afternoon. Stay cool. And thank you, everyone, again. Take care. Bye bye.